All right, Dominic, it appears that I'm going to have to make a shift to our next topic as our guest scheduled for 1 p.m. Had to postpone our meeting due to some unforeseen circumstances. Okay, so this morning we were speaking in terms of congestion, vehicle congestion in Roseau. I can tell you just a few minutes ago, the Commonwealth of Dominica Police Force issued 60 removal notices for abandoned vehicle island-wide. The statement reads, the Commonwealth of Dominica Police Force has issued 60 removal notices for derelict and obstructive vehicles located across several communities in the capital, including Roseau, in Yampies, in Goodwill, Bath Estate, and Pottersville. The notices come as part of an ongoing effort to address environmental health hazards, traffic congestion, and urban blight caused by abandoned or improperly parked vehicles. Police officials say the move is grounded in several key pieces of legislation, including the Vehicles and Road Traffic Act, the Litter Act, and the Solid Waste Management Act. According to the Dominica Police, the targeted vehicles fall under two main categories: derelict vehicles, which are abandoned, broken down, or unlicensed vehicles left unattended for long periods of time; and obstructive parking, vehicles parked on public roads for extended durations, blocking access or posing safety risks. A good effort there. Again, the notices are for 60 vehicles. This is being done in an effort to address environmental health hazards, traffic congestion, and urban blight caused by these derelict vehicles. This appears to be an immediate response to our discussion. Good effort. Of course, there's more work to be done. I'm getting a report that in the north of the island, flow services appear intermittent. That's cell phone service in particular. So the technicians at Flow, please address. Persons are saying that they are not having so much of a good experience on their cell phone. At this time, we'll take a few of your calls. As it relates to this new development, it appears to be an immediate response to our discussion this morning in terms of easing traffic congestion. This also addressed some health hazards in the area. Feel free to call in at this moment and chime in. Give your interpretation of this development. Good afternoon, caller. You're live. Hello, caller. All right, try calling us back. Caller, you're live.
Yeah, good afternoon, sir. How are you doing?
Doing good, brother.
Right. I will tell you now, this is way more than time for something like that to have happened. It's way, like maybe 10 years too late. You understand? Because all vehicles have been backing up all around Dominica. All right? And I would like to believe that when they come to take out every vehicle, all will be taken off because we know what happens when you lean politically. Sometimes people cannot remove your vehicles or cannot remove whatever it is they're asking you to, you know. So I really wish for Dominica, because I heard that was one of the concerns of the people of Ross University, that there were too many derelict vehicles around it. It's unsightly, you know. Because I went to I was in America. I went to Boston. I doing some work with a guy to repair a porch, and we broke down the porch, and then he had to take all the wood and pack it properly and then cover it. You know, if not, what they call a section, it would have come and give whoever a ticket that all the rubbish in the yard is unsightly in the yard.
Yeah.
You know, so I wish nobody prevents anybody from removing their car and dumping it where it's supposed to go. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, caller. You're live.
Afternoon, please.
Good afternoon.
Sincerely, that's my Christian I'm calling. Let me tell you.
Mm.
Flo was supposed to put an increase on people's bill this month, and we were supposed to pay it. I hope it's all what is happening with Flo. They will forget it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. All right, Flo. So one of your customers asking for a little relief there, considering some of the technical issues they've been having. But I believe Flo will get these things resolved. All right, Dominica, let's talk about the Windsor Park Sports Stadium, especially for you all sports enthusiasts out there. As you know, recently $13.8 million was approved to restore and upgrade the lighting, the Windsor Park Sports Stadium. This is funded by the National Lottery Commission. The project is awarded to Canadian firm Prava International Inc. We're going to be speaking to no stranger in sports, Delvin Esprit. Delvin is a former Dominica national cricketer. He's also the coordinator of the Domino League in Dominica. But before we get into it, we're going to take a break. We'll be back after this. Hurricane season. Stay tuned to radio and television stations for regular bulletins. Rely only on official bulletins. Do not check these over the telephone. A message from Q95 FM radio. We are in the Atlantic hurricane season. Stay tuned to radio and television stations for regular bulletins. Rely only on official bulletins. Do not check these over the telephone. A message from Q95 FM radio.
Drink and win with Distinction Milk. Purchase 2 large cans or 4 small cans of Distinction Milk and you get a chance to take home a Ninja Blender, $500 cash, or $500 shopping voucher from any local store you like. Just write your name and telephone number on your receipt and drop it into the box at your store or WhatsApp a photo of your receipt to 317-4130. That number again, 317-4130. It's that easy. Distinction Milk, 100% cow's milk. Better quality, better taste. Hurry, promotion ends soon. Distributed by Fine Foods Inc.
When you come in the jam, you should have a baby in your hand. When you come in the band, you should have a baby in your hand. What we drinking? DBB style. DBB Spice Rum. It's more than just a rum.
BB Spice Rum, distributed by Belfast Estate. Drink responsibly.
Dominica, as promised, on the line with me is former national cricketer and the coordinator of the Dominica Domino League, Mr. Delvin Esprit. Delvin, how are you this afternoon?
Well, good afternoon to you, Richard Ferrer, and good afternoon to your many listeners.
Fantastic. Delvin, let's get into it. We're talking lighting at the Windsor Park Sports Stadium. We saw in recent times, unfortunately. And I know that you're a man, you love your sports. You've been in back and forth debates with some of our colleagues in the media regarding the standard of sports in our country, certain things that you'd like to see. But specifically, we're talking about the stadium right now. We missed two big opportunities, if I'm not mistaken. I'd like you to expound on that and give your professional 2 cents. Now that we got a contract of $13.8 million being allocated. Special thanks to the National Lottery Commission. But Delvin, your views.
Well, Richie, good afternoon to you again, and good afternoon to the listeners. So, Richie, as you said, and so on, in terms of sports in the country, but we're talking specifically in terms of lighting at the Windsor Park Sports Stadium.
Yeah.
And Richie, that lighting at the Windsor Park Sports Stadium, a matter of fact, you can ask anybody and so on that listen to radio, that listen to me and so on. I think it's long overdue, and it's much too long. You're talking about almost 8 years since the Windsor Park Sports Stadium haven't got no type of lighting. You realize that all the other painting in the odd districts, there are lights on the other painting in the odd district, but the main ground in your city capital do not have lights. And I think it's a big move. I want to thank the Lottery Commission for coming on board and as I heard that the contract I've signed, so I'm one of the happiest man in Dominica. So hopefully I'm very, very happy. I'm one of the man that Richie that I've been calling for lights at the Windsor Park for a number of years now. The first time and so on, the project was halted. I understand circumstances happen, but this time around, I think nothing should stop the project. And the most important thing now, in terms of sports in Dominica, is the lighting at the Windsor Park Sports Stadium.
Yeah, and I would agree with you on that. I think many Dominicans would agree as well. We were told by the Honorable Oscar George that the upgrade is supposed to include a few extra things that we did not have. That includes a more modernized control room, meeting the International Cricket Council standards, backup generators, enhanced support facilities, and so on. Your views on these extra assets, does that put us on a level playing field, let's say, to St. Vincent?
Well, what I have to say is that apart from the other countries that have their stuff, we should look to make sure that lighting is as well as the international standard for cricket, as we realize that everything that has to be done, after it takes so long in terms of putting lights at the Windsor Park, and because of circumstances we know, after that length of time, Richie, there should be no kind of mix-up in terms of putting the right thing, everything correct into the Windsor Park Sports Stadium. If it is six lighting to make sure that the entire lighting at the Windsor Park is extremely good for everybody. What you don't want and so on is for that part to come on stream, and then we only see that some parts are still dark and some other parts are still narrow. And so we want to make sure that everything is in place and so on to make sure that the Windsor Park is properly lighted, that you can play football, you can play dominoes, you can play cricket, you can play marble, anything, and you can see somebody on the other side. That's the same type of light I want at Windsor Park. I want to make sure that when you come in the night and so on, to watch cricket or football, that we can see the players can see the ball and everything. So all that. That time around, if we're going to do something, we have to do it properly.
I agree. I agree. Delvin, let's talk about sports. You are the coordinator of the Domino League in recent times. You guys have been pretty much at it. We've been running the results of the Domino League. I mean, how are things shaping up?
Well, as you know that I've run Domino for a number of years, Richie. Last year, association was formed, and so I'm this year at the National League. A team, I got to know the team was selected and so on to represent the country. A lot of people are not happy in terms of the team that was selected and so, but the association select team. And as you know that a lot of people have the concern of the way it went in terms of selection and what that could have been done. A lot of people saying that Richie that the selection is supposed to be based on if you pick an island side to represent your country, you're supposed to look at all aspects of the country and so on, not only in Roseau, Pottersville, or Portsmouth, or Stenjo. You should be looking also at Grand Port, Willis, and everybody, and give everybody a fair chance, at least to make the island side in terms to represent the country. If everybody is the best set of players from Roseau, you pick them to represent the country. But if you think there's other guys and some the odd district and so on that good enough to make the island side, they should be selected also, Richie. And I think the Domino Association maybe have to get the act together. They are already selected a team. They haven't announced the team as yet, Richie. But soon to the general public, they'll announce the team. But a lot of people, after been organizing Domino for about 6 to 7, about 10 years in a row, Richie, I can tell you that some of the people and so on, the type of feedback I'm getting from the people that they are not happy with certain things that's going on.
So you're saying that there's some selective process going on in terms of the teams competing in those leagues.
Well, I mean, all where you go, you'll have people saying certain things, which in terms of selection, because everybody want the people to get on board, and they want the certain people to get on board. Mm-hmm. But if you listen carefully to be in terms of respiratory is something that I always have been saying that. You always pick, if you're going to represent your country, you always pick the best players to represent your country. They might not perform the way you expect them to perform in the competition, but if you have your best players in the competition, you stand a chance. And selection always have a debate, a concern there and there. But all in all, you need to give, especially when it comes for selecting teams, especially national, like an understanding club team. You can pick whoever you want for your club team, and you want to pick your best players to represent your club. But when it comes for the word Dominica, which I taking that thing so serious, when it comes for Dominica, you need to give everybody in Dominica a fair chance to make the national team. And I think that the association, that the selection panel, the witnesses and so on, I personally think it wasn't the best way. I personally believe that if you have guys to have opportunity to make the island side, you have to have a number of trial matches, because normally to tell somebody to leave Roseau to go dailies, to leave Roseau to come down from dailies to come down to a trials on Roseau on a Sunday or on the other day, or to leave Portsmouth to come to Roseau or to this. So I believe that the trials should be organized in a way that, you know something, you for example, the Cricket Association, the trials, they have one in Roseau, they have one in Portsmouth, because Portsmouth is second term. But in dominoes and so on, you have 30 domino teams around the island, in the east, the west, the south, and taking part in your competition. So you should give 30 teams a chance, opportunity for the guys to get to see them on trials and to select them. So first of all, what they should have done is to have a trial in the east. So you have a trial in the east and so on that can cover Daly, Lappin, Whitaker, all those things there in that.
Devin, can you say that again? You're going in and out a bit. You're breaking up. Can you hear me? Okay, I think we've lost Delvin there. We're gonna call him back. And we're back with Delvin Esprit. Yes, Delvin, you can continue.
Yeah, well, I was saying and so on in terms of the training section, the training in terms of selecting a national team. In the area, what you have is that you have a number of teams in the Odd District area, especially in the area, the east. So you have a trial in the east. Then you move across to the northwest and so where you cover Marigot, Woodford Hill, Ansley and those other areas there. And then you go to the north where you cover the Portsmouth and the other areas. And then you have a trial in the west. So that means to say, as an association, you cover all the districts and so on in terms and so on, and you give everybody a fair chance. So if you don't come, that is your funeral. If you think those guys they are good enough and so on to make the whatever 14, 16-man squad, and then in Roseau, then you have your final trials. There you bring all those guys together, and then you select your best national team. But which, as you know, in Dominica, a lot of things will happen differently, and I do think the thing about sports in Dominica is that you have to make sure that when you're doing things, especially when related to the national team and so on, you have the best possible people representing the island. I'm not saying the guys and so on they are selected are not good, you know. But what I'm saying is that you can be good, but you have better players than these guys here. I feel like could have been on the island side, but because we know so concerned the association do it, they think how they do it. But I just think everybody in Dominica should get a fair chance to represent that nature island, Dominica, especially when you go into competition. Too many times and so on, when we go to competition, we just pick people and say, well, let's go, you go in, you go, because it's Dominica. We don't do things like that. We need to change that policy and so on, and pick up that mentality of a job really. Looking now, when you're going into a competition to represent the country, you're going into the competition to win it, and you're not going to lose it. So you have to give yourself a best possible chance of winning the competition. That's why you have to pick the best possible players in Dominica to represent your country at any given time.
Delvin, I just want to touch on something as it relates to athletics. The DAA seems to be organizing the National Juvenile Champs. I'm sure you've heard of it. It's supposed to start on June 21st and ends on the 22nd. It takes place at the Geneva Playing Field in Grand Bay. Delvin, athletics. Does this augur well for the future of athletics in our country?
Oh, yes, athletics have been doing tremendously well. A matter of fact, that initiative is a very good initiative, keeping the young athletes together and so on. As you know, that something coming up in the pipeline and so on, where the Athletics Association for the government and whoever will organize a synthetic track from the Portsmouth Point from area. So we're hoping that can get going, and that will motivate the young athletes to keep them in camp and do. But the Athletics Association have been doing pretty well. The president have been trying his best and so on to get things together. And I think there's hope. And so, as you know, that the inter-school, the Dominica inter-school team will be represented in St. Vincent at the inter-school game, which you know about the inter-school game, and they'll be representing. So they'll have a number of young athletes taking part. Actually, Luke and the rest of them will be taking part representing Dominica in that competition. So it's good to see that athletics doing pretty well, and there's bright scope for athletics. As you know, that TLF have won a gold medal. So that's already have been inspiring the younger generation and so on. Look, if Tia can do it with the right resources, we also can do it. And we don't want to forget Tia because we're only talking about PLR and so on. But we have to talk about only Chinese Hamilton that started off right there in Dominica, at the Dominica Grammar School and so on, doing pretty well. And she's also in the States. And a number of other athletes and so on that have been pretty well in the States. So we just wish them all the best and so on, the Athletics Association. And as you know that they have been spreading their competition around. You see the same thing I've been talking about. So that they go to Geneva, they're moving across to Windsor Park when they get a chance. They're going down to Portsmouth. So they cover the entire country. They're giving everybody a fair chance. If they get an opportunity to go to La Plaine, if the playing field is fit for athletics, they will go there. So that's what you want to do. You want everybody involved.
Fantastic. Delvin Esprit, thank you for taking the time. I'm sure we'll be talking again, but thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, Richie, we're talking again. And Richie, I'm very happy. I can tell you, I'm extremely happy. I'm one of the most happiest guys and so on. We let them talk about June 11 and everything in Windsor Park. Everything has to be put aside. Because the most important thing in Windsor Park now is to have lights at the Windsor Park. So I and you and your grandfather are still alive and your grandmother can come to Windsor Park in the night and watch your match. It doesn't matter, football, whatever. Just come see a game at the Windsor Park Stadium on the light.
But some people, as you mentioned, Dream 11 had to be pushed aside. Some people are a bit they're a bit down. They were looking forward to the economic movement that that game would have bring to Roseau and environs. Any concerns about that?
No, I got no concern about that because I think that the association know that they were going to be lighting at the Windsor Park. So somebody must miss out. In life, you must miss out in life. And there's opportunities when the lights are there, you can never tell what can happen. When the lights are in Windsor Park, all the economic benefits and so on, they missing out, but they might get more because that means there's a possibility that they can adjust whatever is in the zone and have the matches on the light. You'll get more spectators coming in the night because you see Dominicans like to watch in the night and watch football and watch sports too.
Yeah.
That will be beneficial to them. So the most important thing to me now, I don't hear nothing about cricket, nothing at the Windsor Park now. All I want to hear about is that I pass in there every day and keep in just to make sure that I see that project start. And not only that, Richie, I want that project to start and finish because from January 1st, 2026, or even before October or November, we need to see lights at Windsor Park so everybody Dominicans can come. One night we can just come and say, we just want to see a series of football matches or cricket matches. All of us just flock in the Windsor Park to enjoy the good time.
Devin Esprit, thanks again, brother. Take care.
Take care, my brother.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, Delvin Esprit. At this time, we'll take a call or two. Lighting at the Windsor Park Sports Stadium. Caller, you're live.
Hey, Richie, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Yeah, Richie, one of the best things we can do as a, support is zero.
Yeah,
when somebody, is not the best person to be on a team, people should not try to suck up to them. You have to accept the reality and accept that sometimes you may need to work a little harder at what you need to do personally. Because a lot of people talk about what should be done, but you should also remember that you gotta work on yourself personally. Otherwise, you can't beat a record. Like, for example, you want to beat a personal record. You understand? Like, you need to put a record. Let's say somebody stands something on the track, sprinting. Say, okay, I want to beat the record. Hold it to yourself. You want to make the football team. You want to be good. Hold that to yourself, and keep pushing. Anyway, have a good afternoon. Very good job.
Good afternoon. Very soon we will be speaking on the matter of educational reform. But before that, let's take this call. Caller, you're live.
Richie, how you doing, my brother?
Doing good, bro.
Richie, do you recall that name, that football team called Harlem Bombers?
Yes, I recall it.
You were a toddler, I guess. Harlem Bombers, Kensborough United. I went.
Hello, caller. I don't know what happened there. Please call back. So, as I was saying, just before we begin talking about educational reform, I want to touch on the Prime Minister's recent statement a few hours ago in St. Vincent. Good afternoon, caller. You're live.
Richie.
Yes.
As there's in Esprit, when they had the T2020 in Maru, what the Prime Minister said, he said the boarding for the lighting for the stadium is there. How come up to the stadium because of light? He regarding Richard, he tell us. And then, when the Prime Minister said that, since so long that passed, how many months passed? Up to now, the stadium cannot light. So, yes, that's for me, please. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, to the credit of the government, at one of the press conferences held earlier this year, he did say, and I was there, he said some reasons as to why lighting was not completed at the stadium. Something to do with the contractor procuring the wrong fittings, delays in shipping, stuff like that. But I think it's something that many Dominicans are hoping will be resolved soonest, because we keep missing major opportunities as it relates to entertainment and sports, and as well as the economic factor. You know, the vendors, taxi drivers, they're losing out. Good afternoon, caller. You're live.
Yes, Richie. You there with me?
Yes, I'm there.
So I was saying in the 70s, the 80s, even the 90s, we went to every Harlem Bombers football match at the Windsor Park to see Kensborough United, to see all the football matches. We had football gala in the Windsor Park. And we never had lights. And we never screamed for lights. We never wanted lights because there was football galore from 3 o'clock, from 4 o'clock. All I remember the football league starting from 2 o'clock, from 4 o'clock. By 6 o'clock, we all go home. What is this now that the new generation now want music at football? They want music at cricket. They want music in a political party meeting. They want music anywhere they go. Something is wrong. The generation has been spoiled. Anytime you have a football match, it's noise. Music noise. You go to the cricket, and they had cricket recently, is music noise. You hear the name of the law, the Noise Abatement Act. We must ban the word music and call it noise. I mean, something is wrong. Why do you want lights? That's a waste of $13 million. The night is for people to rest and sleep. That's my opinion. That's my argument. What am I going at night, at midnight, or 11 o'clock in the night, 10 o'clock at night, to go and see cricket or football when that should be played from 4 o'clock to 6 o'clock? What's wrong with that time? I know I'm going to be stepping on toes, but that's how I look at it. That's a waste of $13 million that could be used elsewhere. People hungry. What we're doing with lights in the stadium? Man, brother, hang in there, partner. Take care. Hang in there.
Yes, you as well, huh? Things will get better once we work together. As it relates to your comments, persons may not fully agree with the comment. What we doing with lights? Because internationally, this is a standard. There's a certain type of lights you need for a stadium, and if you plan to use that venue for economical reasons, in terms of hosting games, like what we wanted to do with the ICC, then you need a well-lit stadium. They will never send professional teams to perform in a stadium without lights. Okay, so think about that. Good afternoon to Otto and to Marlene. Good afternoon. Okay, so just quickly, let me just because this morning a caller brought this to my attention. I did some research, and it turns out that statement was in fact made by the Honorable Prime Minister Roosevelt Scarrett in St. Vincent. This was published by the Eyewitness News. He says, headline of the story is Dominica willing to divest some national authority to the OECS. An insert from his statement is as follows. open quote. And I think Prime Minister, that's Dr. Ralph Gonsalves, and myself, two Prime Ministers, would have been part of the discussions leading up to this position for us to achieve what we are proposing. And I agree with that. We have to be prepared to divest ourselves from a national standpoint of our constitutional authority to enact laws, end quote. Prime Minister Skerrit said. So we'll divulge that at another time, but we are gearing up to talk on educational reform. As we know, recently the government expressed its interest in reforming the education sector. And with us is a man of great capacity, certified to speak on educational reform, or qualified to speak on that matter. Recently, the Prime Minister held a consultation. He described the current model of our education system as outdated and detrimental to students' development. The minister is proposing a national symposium but with me at this time is trained teacher and former Assistant Chief Education Officer, Mr. Arundel Thomas. So this call for educational reform, we're just going to see if in fact proper protocol is being followed as it relates to the Constitution and the Education Act of 1997. It's very specific as to the actual protocol that must be followed for any kind of reform to occur. Mr. Thomas, good afternoon.
Yeah, good afternoon, name it Arundel. I would be okay with that. Thank you very much for allowing me to be gracing me with the presence, your presence, at in Q95.
Yeah.
I used to be a lot often,
Yes, yes, yes.
before.
No stranger.
No, not totally a stranger. The name is Arundel Thomas, and I like to call myself the guy from Lac-Cousette-Lang because I was born in Mitton Charlottesville,
Yeah.
and so on, and then moved to Citronnier as a young person.
Mm.
I want to say good afternoon to the listeners and all the common callers and my brother Blessings and all those listening, Ozzy and his wife up there in Emsall, Blue, and the rest of the listeners all over the world. Good afternoon.
And right now we're talking educational reform,
Curriculum reform, more specifically.
curriculum reform specifically, and we're going to look at it at some point if the protocol that we're seeing from the government is actually the right way to go about seeking curriculum reform. But currently, for the past decade, generally, would you say that we've been going in the right direction as regards our education system?
Well, first of all, thank you. That's a great question. What I'd like to say is that laws are created to reduce the risk of structural collapse, whether it's a law governing money laundering, banking, and stuff like that, a law governing tourism and things like that, immigration. Laws are created to reduce the risk because nothing can be prevented totally of cultural collapse. You see, for instance, in areas where physically, where the laws, physical structures, where the laws are not followed, there can be major collapse.
Yeah.
So the Education Act, I want to begin with that because prior to that, we had what we called an education ordinance under colonial times that was kind of obtuse and obscure and didn't really give good guidance to where we should go in education. But in under the OERU, that is the OECS Education Reform Unit, there was a project that sought to improve education, develop education, to do things in education that would help us to advance in a more systematic and strategic way. And one of the things that were done was the development of the Education Act, an Education Act for Dominica. Other countries had an Education Act, like Jamaica, I think, and there were other acts because that existed. So Dominica did not have an Education Act, and that was as you pointed out, in the 1970s. Actually, if you notice the time, it was during the reign of the United Workers' Party government that this act was in fact gazetted. But prior to that, no, my experience is, first of all, as you say, I'm a trained teacher. I also serve as an education officer, district education officer. And my training is in my graduate work is in educational management and development. So at teacher training, my teacher training program, I studied curriculum, teacher education, which involved or included curriculum and literature, which I was excited about. Yeah. So now I was the person as an assistant chief education officer responsible for school operations, which involved staffing, ensuring that schools were staffed, coordinating the staffing of schools, and coordinating the work of the supervisors, the learning support people, the guidance counselors, and the education officers, and stuff. And it was an exciting job because I visited every school. Also responsible for promulgating the Education Act. When we talk about education in Dominica, we have to talk about it with respect to the law, because that law is proactive, creative, and forward-thinking, because it covers everything that we have to do in education.
Yeah.
I share that with you now. And the reason the law is important because the Constitution says in the preamble, the people of Dominica affirm that freedom, they recognize that men and institutions shall remain free only when freedom is founded upon respect for moral and spiritual values and the rule of law. So a government act, is a rule of law that is intended to be followed. So the broader question you asked about education and things like that, you have to judge that on the basis of how well we have been doing that with respect to the Education
To the
Act.
Education Act.
And I tell you why. Because the Education Act was gazetted in 1997.
97.
And it talks about the purpose of the Education Act. And that should answer the question that you're raising. And we could determine whether how far we've reached, how well we've advanced in our education, according to what is stated in the purpose of the Act.
Of the Act, yeah.
So Section 3 of the Education Act says, the purpose of this Act is to provide for the orderly and coordinated development of a relevant, varied, and comprehensive educational system in Dominica, characterized by excellence. If you listen to the words there, this tells you why the Act is so important in determining what progress is made for over the last 20 years, 30 years, or certainly over the period of time when we've had this Education Act. You know, because the Act states what its purpose is, to ensure an orderly, and that's a very important word. Things haven't got to be done vike, crazy, like people getting attention for one person kept coming out to say this or do this. It's not about that. It's about an orderly, it's about a coordinated approach. You understand what I mean? So the Education Act gives authority to the minister to address matters pertaining to education. It's not about persons going on a stage and seeking limelight, and people have whims and fancies, and they decide, I don't like to see that in the curriculum. I'll come to that curriculum thing in a while. I'd like to see that in education, and therefore I want to have it changed. And as a result, they have their own consultations and stuff. As you've pointed out, the law determines, describes, and defines how this should be done. So we talk about curriculum because the statement made by the Prime Minister, who had a consultation and is going all about the place saying what he would like to see in education, in curriculum, because he's talking about the curriculum. Let me explain what the curriculum is. The curriculum now is, it refers to the planned sequence of learning experiences encompassing subjects, topics, skills, values, designed to guide student learning and development. So it encompasses all these things. So when you talk about having new subjects in the curriculum, you're speaking of changing, reforming the curriculum. And that's what the Prime Minister has been talking about. Curriculum change, according to the laws of Dominica, is not the function of the whims and fancies of the Prime Minister or even the Minister for that matter, or any other prominent person in education. There's a process. There's a legal process that is described in the law that we must follow to do things in an orderly manner, in a coordinated manner. So it's not somebody jumping on a stage and saying, I want this, I want that, and calling his own meeting. And I hear you talk about a national symposium. So let us see what the law says. I want to talk about focus on curriculum change, because that is where education is about. Education is about the curriculum, educating your students. So
Arundel, yes, I would agree with you. From what I have read, there is definitely a process. Let's go into that specifically. And now you mentioned what the purpose of the act is, and as it relates to having an orderly
and coordinated approach to development of education.
Yeah, so it answers the question. The concerns being expressed indicate that may not have been the case for the past.
Well, I'm not even. Well, people can see for themselves. They can devolve. They can understand what's happening.
Yeah,
like there are issues, there are concerns.
Yeah,
that we may not be following the law.
Yeah. And
I hear in the thing you talk about St. Vincent and the OECS thing, there's a talk about law. So, I mean, a person must, if you're not in the habit of following law, no matter how many laws there are, you still wouldn't follow them. This law is the law of Dominica that governs how we develop our education system in an orderly manner. The education reform is not the the function of a person on stage seeking line, making statements and stuff. So as you said, we're going to see what the process is, the legal process is.
Let's go into that.
Right. Now, the Education Act, and let me tell you, my work was to promulgate the Education Act. I've been to every single school. I've been several PTAs, I've been to PTAs, and I was there at the origin, at the very beginning, the development of the Education Act. I traveled to other OECS countries.
Yeah.
There was Kenny Anthony, St. Lucian attorney, who was a draftsman for the region. He was an attorney, and we worked with him in St. Lucia, St. Vincent and Grenadines, and there was the OERU, the organization of OECS Reform Unit.
Yeah.
So I was a major part. There was a committee that was set up. I was chairman of a committee to go through the law and so on, and to ensure that we organized the law. And he had the legal draftsman, Ray Harris, who drafted the law, crafted it to ensure that it covered as many things as possible. The original law covered all education systems from early childhood to tertiary education. But so along the way, for easier management of these systems, the preschool, we call it early childhood, there was a separate act governing early childhood education and a separate act governing tertiary education. So it governs primary and secondary education. Early childhood education is not covered by a different act. Although originally there are things in the act that refer to early childhood education and tertiary education and the GSD, vocational skills and all that stuff. So let's talk about the law, the process, because you see, I want to repeat this. When we fail to adhere to the process, when we fail to comply with the law, there is going to be collapse.
Yeah.
Like we had a recent collapse of a roof, and one wonders whether this was a possible result of the failure of the authorities to follow the law, and give those persons that were responsible, that had authority to do their work, to do those things that would at least reduce. You cannot eliminate hazards in the world, no matter how perfect your building is, because you need to reduce the risk, not necessarily eliminate it, but make it less likely to happen. So in education, if we follow the law according to the curriculum development, we will see Section 137 of the Education Act to found 42, 43. These sections deal with the process. And then I want people to listen carefully to determine whether what is happening here now with the Prime Minister and having these consultations is the legal way. Now, people can violate the law, because in Dominica, there doesn't appear to be consequences for especially people in authority who violate the law. But this is a government law. And Mr. Skerritt was once Minister for Education. I want to say publicly that when he was Minister for Education and the law was enacted, I was the person who promulgated the act. We had a good relationship. He understood the purpose of the law. And by and large, as Minister for Education, I saw some promise that, when people had various country reviews and trying to diminish the value of the law, at that time, he seemed to be the person I could go to and we could have a conversation about the law. And he insisted, as Minister for Education. I don't know what happened later, but then I can say that. So let's go to Section 137 of the Act that speaks to the process for changing, reforming the curriculum. Part 8, curriculum and assessment of students. That's what that section is, part is entitled. And it says national curriculum, Section 137. And as I explained to you, the curriculum refers to the body of learning activities, values, core values, and stuff like that we teach our children, whether it's civics, French, science, vocational subjects. The minister, and I want to emphasize that, the minister, and that refers to the Minister for Education. It doesn't say the Prime Minister.
Yeah.
It says the minister shall establish a national curriculum for public schools and assisted private schools. When we speak about assisted private schools, we talk about the Convent High School, the St. Martin's School, the Seventh-day Adventists. They are all covered under the Education Act. It says the minister. So, I want to digress a bit, and says governance is about empowering people, empowering the minister to use the authority to do things they have to do, to empowering the people of your country to make them participate in the government of the country. When one person takes it upon himself to make these declarations, it raises troubling questions to me. It tells me that perhaps the minister not backing up or doesn't understand his or her role and authority according to the law. And as a minister for education, you don't quite grasp those things. There are questions that we ask about your role and your purpose for being a minister for education. And so the minister is the one leading these things. Now, the prime minister is cabinet head. So the minister does the work and proffers it, presents it to cabinet. And that's where the prime minister comes in. He's not the one on the ground walking around meeting teachers and senior teachers. Let me tell you, I've been an education officer where we had district confabs. I met my people. For me, when the minister came, that was the end of it. That was like cheese on your bread. We never had the prime, unless it was a national thing. We hardly had prime minister come in at that level because they had work to do. They had better, more heavy things to do. So when the chief education officer came, or even myself as the assistant chief when I was there, you know, at little graduations or little conferences and so on, that was like cheese, like was how it was. Today, I see a different kind of thing, and that worries me. It means that perhaps the people that are supposed to be in authority, the ministers, are not empowered. Or let me ask a question. Are they empowered? But the act now says the minister shall establish a national curriculum for public schools and assisted private schools. That is, the minister has the authority by law to determine what subjects, what topics, what skills, what values and so on would guide student learning and development at government schools and what we call non-government schools. That's section 1, section 137.1. Section 2, subsection 2. So that's subsection 1. Subsection 2. A curriculum established under subsection 1 must be balanced and broadly based, and must, in addition to the goals and objectives specified in section 4, subsection 2, A, promote the spiritual, moral, cultural, intellectual, and physical development of students and of society, and prepare students for the opportunities, responsibilities, and experiences of adult life. So you see how comprehensive that is? You know, you follow what I mean? It's not about like a bike person jumping up on a person jumping up and going on a stage and coming and say, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. The law refers to a coordinated and organized approach to these things, you know, and
comprehensive.
And by the minister is the one that's supposed to be doing those things. And B, prepare students for the opportunities, responsibilities, and experiences of human. Now, that's kind of broad, but you can see some value in that kind of definition of what the curriculum is supposed to do. You know what I mean? Now, that cannot be done by going on a stage and saying, I want to see civics, I want to see more music, I want to see more sports, and the law tells us how we have to do that. That's subsection 2, A and B. And 3, subsection 3 of 137, the minister, that is the minister for
education.
Yeah, my brother, may revise or reform or change the national curriculum whenever he or she considers it necessary and expedient to do so. So who's the authority and the power there?
Octavia.
Well, I'm calling for name. I'm talking on position.
The Minister of Education.
The Minister for Education. Are you seeing the Minister for Education at the forefront making those statements, dealing with those matters?
No.
Okay, that speaks for itself. You don't have to say nothing else. But the law is clear. And remember, the Constitution says Dominica shall recognize that men and institutions remain free only when we abide by the rule of law. So clearly you can see there appears to be some violation of the law if the minister is not taking up her or his responsibility and authority to do those things that he's supposed to do. And I want to repeat that. Le ou pas obéir loi ou que collapse the structural collapse, physical structure and educational system structure collapse by violating the law. It doesn't appear that these things are important to some people. No, Section 138. The curriculum for every public school and assisted private schools, and I talk about the assisted schools, must comprise core and foundation subjects and specify in relation to each of them, subject. And so they have to develop the curriculum. And let me tell you, there is a curriculum unit in the Ministry of Education. We have various units. They have measurement unit, measurement and testing for test assessment of schools. We have the curriculum unit, and they're the ones that should be driving, advising the minister and maybe the prime minister, I suppose, the government. Let me say it this way: the curriculum unit, because government politicians should not claim to want to have to do everything. That is why the functionaries, the public officers, that's their role to advise the government. So the person that should be speaking loudly about those things would be the minister and persons, the chief education officer, the assistant chief, and officers from the curriculum unit. They should be the ones going around and talking about addressing the public on these matters of curriculum reform. You understand? So when you see one person want to make a thing on stage, a boogie on stage, and claim and usurp authority that the law doesn't give them, it raises troubling questions. So let's talk, not just about the person himself, but about the persons that they work with. So let's go over that very carefully. The curriculum, section 138.1. And we said the curriculum for every public school and assisted private school must comprise core and foundation subjects and specify in relation to each of them. A, attainment targets, that is the objectives and the objectives, the topics, and so on. Attainment targets that include knowledge, skills, and understanding which students of different abilities. So you see, not all students are the same. So you have to teach at various levels.
Different learning styles.
Abilities, and maturities, because a child might be 9 years old but operates at a 15-year-old. Chronologically, you're 9, but mentally, in maturity, you are 15. Right. Sometimes you're 9, and maturity, you are probably 5. You see, so the curriculum has to pay attention to these things. So it's a coordinated and orderly approach, not a vibe crazy. I want to see this and I want to see that. And maturities are expected to have by the end. So each objectives for these people, because not all of them will have to reach the same place at the same time. You understand? Mm-hmm. Right. Programs of study that include matters, skills, and processes that are required. You see, skills, vocational skills, craft, sewing, woodwork. So the law provides those things to happen. Mm-hmm. Which are required to be taught to students at different abilities and maturities during each key stage. So we talk about key stages. So we talk about the early stages of education, juniors, preschool, juniors, seniors, and stuff like that, and to be taught to students of different abilities and maturities during each key stage. And C, assessment arrangements. That is how you determine whether the students have achieved the objectives for each key stage. Assessment arrangements that include the arrangements for assessing students at or near the end of each key stage for the purpose of ascertaining what they have achieved in relation to the attainment targets. So you see how methodical that is?
I mean, it's really forward thinking.
It's very profoundly forward thinking. So I don't know where the minister is, whether the prime minister himself, who at one time had a sense as minister that this thing was an important instrument. I don't know where the minister is, because she doesn't appear to be. She appears to be saying, "Oh, I heard in something on DBS saying, oh, the prime minister was there talking to the senior teachers about what? That's the authority by law. You should be informing the minister, the prime minister. He's too busy. He have other things to do. The prime minister has too many weighty other things to do for him to have to be the one going around trying to change curriculum and address curriculum matters. And the Education Act recognizes that the prime minister is a busy man, right? Should be a busy person, according to local talk, dealing with weightier matters than curriculum change. That's why it gives the minister the power and authority. So I'm going to go back over that. Assessment, ascertaining what they have achieved in relation to the attainment targets. And it says subsection 1 does not apply in the case of home when you have special delivery of special education children, because we have a special education act. We have an act for special education as well, because of course special education will their requirements, their needs, and so on will be different. You understand?
Yeah.
So here it talks about the key stages, section 139. I wouldn't bore you with that, but I'll continue to section. Okay, I will go subsection 4, the minister. And it's important to know, the assessment may be made by the ministry or by a body of organization. In other words, they can employ somebody to assess these key stages of the students and so on learning process. The minister shall determine the frequency of the assessments. That's subsection 4. Subsection 5, the minister. So you see, Mr. Farrell, I'm emphasizing what the law states. It's not. It doesn't. You see, Prime Minister there? No. Answer my question. You see, Prime Minister. It doesn't say that.
No.
The minister may publish the results of the assessment. So the authority, the person who is empowered to manage the education, to supervise policy-wise and guide the Ministry of Education. See, of course, as I said, there's a curriculum unit that advises the minister. There are education officers that advise the minister. There's a learning support team, the planning unit, the testing and measurement unit. All these bodies of functionaries, government, public servants, they are the ones that have the bright sparks. I always like to wasn't say that. When I was assistant chief education officer, I had so many bright people around me. The guidance council, people who were trained. Jeffrey Blaise, Lucina Lafont, Ernie, John Finn, Kito Serafin, Thomas Holmes, Pat Slate, a lot of bright people, guidance counselors. They were so bright. When we met and we talked about what was happening in education from time to time, we met in this at Cornwall Street, and we had discussions on what we're doing, how we're proceeding, what areas we were strong in, what areas we needed to improve, and we had a corporate plan where we contributed to, where we tried to have. Well, I don't know whether that happens today, but you can see in 1998, 1999, that's the corporate plan for the Ministry of Education, Sports and Youth Affairs. And we in school supervision, we had our own senior management. We had for senior management our own objectives. Is that
in line
with the education plan, with the curriculum? Wow. We had our own objective, and every year we have to prepare a corporate plan to give guidance. So planning is important. C'est pas parole à bouche, parler. It has to be coordinated and orderly, And so we had the program, we had all sorts of things about attainment levels, and stuff like that. So let's continue. I'm going to section 140. And I want to be slow on that. The minister. You notice how many times in the Education Act?
A lot.
It speaks to the minister?
Yeah.
Because the authority, according to the law, is the. You see any prime minister written there? Any of that? No. He has bigger things to do. He has to go and look for money to fix the bridges, to repair the grammar school building, to fix roads, and those big things. How we can get the money, how we can get to pay public officers and the NEP people. The prime minister is a busy guy. He shouldn't be the one doing those little menial jobs, usurping the authority of the minister.
I mean, it's important, but there's a minister for that.
Exactly.
That's what the law is saying.
Exactly. But you see, the law is intended, this law here is intended to work with the Constitution, where you have a prime minister who is not the minister for all ministries. He's not the minister for health. So in health now, I'm sure you have these functionaries that have to advise the minister. And it's the minister of health that's supposed to deal with the nitty-gritty matters of health. You know what I mean? About even medication here or whatever health things I can tell you about education. Only when I go to the hospital, I can tell you about health. But the point is the minister, not the prime minister that doesn't take the limelight or the spotlight. It's not the Dublin stage. It's not a rally. At the rally at Dublin, the prime minister has very right to go and boogie on the stage. But when it comes to serious matters of education and the curriculum matters, is the minister. The law requires, demands that is the minister that has to be empowered to do that. Section 140. What you notice? The minister shall by notice publish in the Gazette. You see how that's a serious responsibility? And I want to know and find out whether the minister has obeyed and complied with that section of the law.
I haven't seen that.
I don't know what the Gazette. I took the Gazette before, They just blocked the Gazette again now. Now you can hardly see that way. The Gazette. So the minister shall by notice published in the Gazette establish. So he has to, the minister must tell people then the core subjects and other foundation subjects, what the curriculum entails. The minister by law is required. You see the word shall there?
Shall.
When you see shall, my brother, explain to me what you understand by shall.
Must.
It's bound to happen, right?
Must happen.
Have you seen that any time at all?
No, I have not.
So we have issues there, don't we?
Yeah.
I should be asking the question. Do we have issues there? So I would be accused of blasphemy. So the core subjects, so they have to publish the core subjects and the foundation subjects, the attainment targets,
yeah.
the programs of study and assessment arrangements. Now, these things, when I worked in the Ministry of Education, we had a curriculum unit, we had a testing unit, we had the measurement and planning, testing and measurement, planning unit. We also had a maintenance unit that when schools needed regular repairs, they were the ones going out. We had Chad Prince and Eversley and David Edwards. They would inspect the schools. If they were, like the water, the plumbing had a problem. You know what I mean? The electricity had a problem. There's a window to be fixed. The maintenance unit of the ministry, the government functionaries, they went out to the schools. I mean, they had resource constraints.
The ministry was well organized.
Well, I don't want to go on and say them things. I'm saying that's what we did. You can come to your own conclusion. And the curriculum unit that worked with the minister. Well, we didn't work directly with the minister, but then we advised, we sorted all things out, and we worked with the chief education officer, the assistant chief, the matters of staffing, and the testing and unit measurement. Mr. Goldberg was worked there, and I was the head of that unit. Zaki Pollock was head of the planning unit, and the curriculum unit. I think Mr. Lance, Rupert Lance. You know, we had people there that paid attention to those things, advised on these things and all that. So you see, the law requires order and coordination. I'm asking, do we have order and coordination? Why is the Prime Minister the one articulating things about curriculum reform? I'm just asking. I'm not defaming anybody.
No.
Okay. Why is not the minister taking responsibility and being empowered to do those things that law requires the person to do? I'm not saying him or her. So they shall publish that in the Gazette. Have you seen that published in the Gazette?
No.
Okay. So it says a notice under subsection 1 may not require any particular period or periods of time should be allocated. So the question of how much time for each subject, the schools can work around that. You know what I mean? Because sometimes you have constraint. Of course, government always operates with resource constraints. And the education that provides for that, you know, because many things that you would like to do because of financial constraints, the education is a compassionate act. It understands that it's not all what we want in education we can get because of resources, yeah. Human resources, financial resources, and material resources. You know what I mean? But a wise government understands those things. These things are understood in an organized and orderly way. You take decisions in an organized, you empower your functionaries, you empower the public servants. That's where the power of the Prime Minister comes. That's where the power of the minister comes. Not from his own grandiose ideas and whims and fat things, but the power of the government resides in the empowerment of the functionaries, the curriculum people, the teachers, the head teachers, the education officers, the guidance counselors.
They were empowered within their title.
Well, exactly. The assistant chief education officer, the chief education officer. When you empower these people, the government blazes.
Things get done.
That's why I tell you, when I was assistant chief, I worked with brilliant people, and they were superstars. I shone because of their life. You know what I mean?
Okay.
And we met, and we had a great coordinated thing. We had a great staff, we had great camaraderie and what they call collegiality. When it was Christmas, we had people dealing with secret gifts. All these things are good for institutional power, you know? Health.
Good morale.
Good morale, you know what I mean? When it's your national day, everybody brought a dish, and then we had music. Patsy played the guitar, I played the harmonica, because it's like a collegial kind of a thing. This empowers people, and you understand your work. You do your work. I mean, it wasn't perfect. Nobody talks about perfection, but at least we were moving towards
perfection. It was a standard. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. I get you.
Very good. So, and it says here, section 41. I'm going to section 41 now. For the purpose of creating and revising the national curriculum, which is what the talk is about,
Yeah.
and all this symposium is about, and all these consultations of parents and teachers by the Prime Minister. That's what it's about. For the purpose, Section 141 of the Education Law Act, for the purpose of creating and revising. You understand what it says? To reform, to change, to put new things, or to take out old things.
Amend.
To amend. Oh, you're a smart guy, right? To amend the national curriculum from time to time, because nothing is static in life.
Yeah.
Things change. You have all sorts of new things happening now. You have AI, you have tablets and computers. When I went to school, the chalk, and I had a slate. And when I first went to school, there was a slate and a lead a pencil. You never had that. You too advanced to that.
Pen and paper.
Pen and paper. And I eventually went to pen and paper, but pencil and paper first, and then pen and paper. But we had a slate. You know what a slate is? It's a piece of slate. I think one of the slate things, and you had a little lead pencil, and you write your name. It's a piece of rock, some stone thing. Somebody else smarter than me outside there might be able to describe it. But we had a slate. And somebody had a piece of slate. And you went to ABC, you know what I mean? And you wrote on your slate in ABC. But times have changed. Life is not static.
Yeah.
Life is dynamic. It moves. So the Education Act is such a brilliant piece of work that it understands that from time to time, the curriculum will have to move with the way the world moves. So it says that for the purpose of creating and revising the national curriculum from time to time, the minister, the minister may constitute subject. Hey, so you see what the minister's role is here? To constitute subject panels
to develop
syllabuses for the core and foundation subjects. So you see how important that is, because you have people in mathematics that are brilliant mathematicians, brilliant, and people trained in language arts and so on, people trained in woodwork and fishing.
I'm not seeing, we haven't seen any of that.
We're not hearing about it. Is the minister that must tell us? You know what I mean? I mean, no any minister telling us that. So a subject panel shall comprise the following: members of the teaching profession with expertise in the subject, obviously. So if you go to the maths, you have a trained math person. You know what I mean? If you're going to do English, science, biology, geography, whatever it is, you have to have a trained person to advise on how to go about it, and so on. Officials of the ministry, like the education officers, many of them are smart people. They're trained in a lot of things, and they go around the schools. They're supposed to do their work, seeing the teachers, talking to the head teachers.
Yeah.
So you have officials in the ministry, and other persons, including parents. So I recall now, when I was assistant chief education officer, we had a review system. And in that review body, we had parents accompany us to schools. But first of all, we had to review schools from time to time. We told the schools we were coming. We had a system, a paradigm for doing that.
But it's specified, especially when you include the parents, that the parents actually have to have relevant knowledge.
Right. Those having the
experience of the subjects to be considered.
And let me tell you, don't underestimate parents. Not because they
I mean,
some of them are trained.
They're trained
also good in mathematics.
And mathematics.
Oh yeah. Parents have skills in the knowledge. Some of them are degree people and all that stuff. They have training. Like I'm a parent. I'm an English literature person. If there was a invitation for me to join the panel with respect to teaching English language, I'm still learning English
qualified,
language, and so there are other parents. Parents, I mean, you have what the qualifications and so on. But make sure it's those for maths, those are training in maths, those are training in accounting and whatever, computer sciences. You see how you're going back to the old thing, because I'm not yet into the new coding systems of computers and stuff like that. But they must have relevant knowledge or expertise in the subject.
Yeah.
That's important. All right. But you see, the point is, you don't just have ministry officials. You don't just have teachers. You expand to the community. So you see how forward thinking and advanced and beautiful is education.
This was gazetted in 1997.
Exactly. Well, you see, when you ask me the question about how much we have advanced,
these people are brilliant. I mean,
well, I tell you, I was part of the thing with Anthony Lockhart and a whole set of other teachers, the DAT, and a lot of other persons. Sylvia Nicholas, we had our craftsman, the legal draftsman, Ray Harris. We had other persons, and we traveled. Personally, I went to several other OECS countries, because as we were working to develop this act, to make sure that we did We, you notice I said we.
We.
Pas moi.
Team.
Ma jamais dit moi yon qui a fait. Autant vous n'avez pas parlé comme si c'est yo qui sta là. Aucun commentaire mon gars, non more. Thank you. So, Pat, what is important, yeah? You can't just talk English. Nobody can understand you. Good. So let's talk now.
I'm learning.
I'm learning myself. Yeah. Pat, what you learn? English or Patois?
English. I'm learning Patois.
I'm learning Patois now. So this subject panels shall consist of not less than 5 or not more than 9 persons, members, appointed by
the minister.
The minister. After consultation with
the chief education officer.
And then does it say the prime minister consultation with the prime minister?
No.
I want to ride home that point, you know.
Yeah.
Because I want the minister for education and the other functionaries to understand that the law has to be followed.
I mean, we've gone through 3 sections so far.
Exactly.
And there's no mention
of anybody but the minister and the officials in government.
Yeah.
Don't call nobody name. Don't say no other position because it's not there, right? So the subject matter consists of not less than so on and so on, and one shall be appointed as chairman, obviously. Another may be appointed deputy chairman. So the minister does all these things. Subsection 4. Who? The chief education officer and other official designated by him may coordinate the work of the subject panel. So they can put a minister, the chief education officer, and if he's too busy, put an education officer, some other person in the ministry to coordinate the committee, you know? So it's interesting. They talk about, I want to go over that. The next section talks about the school day. You know, this act is so beautiful and comprehensive. We talked about the school day and various other matters, and I had some difficulties about some persons that had different views on that. And because the Constitution, no law is superior to the Constitution. You understand?
Mm-hmm.
And but I want to go to another section here, which is very important to the conversation we are having. It talks about, I want to go to section division B, because that feeds or it informs what you asked me about how well we've done in education. Division B, you see section 146.
Yeah.
You with me?
I'm with you.
Right. Now let us, you want to read for me?
Yeah. Section 146, subsection 1. Every 5 years.
No, you can start off it. Take your time and read it slowly, my brother.
Every 5 years, or as soon as practicable thereafter, Cabinet, on the recommendation of the minister.
Say that again?
The minister.
Okay.
Shall appoint an education review committee of not more than 5 members to review and report on the education system of Dominica in accordance with section 147.
I want you to pause a while because I didn't get every word you said. Well, the keywords. The minister shall
appoint.
Shall appoint. Not may, but let us say according to law, you should do it. When you tell a person you may do it, but you say you should do that, it's more a commanding authority.
That's what it is.
You're right.
Yeah.
You shall. Ou obligé faire then.
Yeah.
In anglais.
Where?
So, continue.
The minister shall appoint an education review committee of not more than 5 members to review and report on the education system of Dominica in accordance with section 147.
We shall go to section 147 in a while. So you see that's a requirement by law. And the question, I don't want to defame anybody. Has the minister, I mean, this government has been in power for over 20 years, 25 years. Has that part of the law been followed, been complied? Have they complied with that portion of the law? And I said to you, when we fail to comply with law, we are inviting structural collapse. That's all I'll say to that. Continue. I want you to read it because you're a brilliant guy. I like to hear you read.
Subsection 2. The Education Review Committee shall comprise a member having relevant knowledge or expertise in education and who shall be the chairperson.
So, like a guy like me, I don't position. I'm not asking for that. I don't care.
Yeah.
But there are several other persons in education. I mean, retired principal things, or some people outside education, or even in education. You know what I mean? Because it doesn't say they should be retired persons.
Yeah.
You know, but the person must have relevant knowledge or expertise in education. You know, and he shall be the chairperson. It's like if you have, for instance, the IPO or the Electoral Commission, you want a person like with legal expertise to be the chairman of that. It facilitates a lot of things when you do that. You know what I mean? Certain committees and boards and so on. If you have a person like Wasco, if you can get a technical person that understands the water thing, it makes it a lot better. You can get more, you can achieve more with respect to guiding the Wasco on water management.
Of course.
In Domlek, if you have a person that's an engineer,
electrical engineer,
you must have a better sense. You know what I mean? So that's why it says a person that will head that committee should have knowledge in education. I like to hear you read. You can read for me.
Subsection B, one member from either one, a parent-teacher association, or two, a board of management.
A board of management of school, you know? Some schools, like the private assisted schools, they have a board, they have boards of management. Yeah.
Subsection C, one member from organizations concerned with either one, community development, two, industry and commerce, or three, professional services.
So like you have secretaries, profession, you have civic persons, you know, the civic guys at the civic society.
Yeah.
So I represent the civic society, a union, a trade union, industry and commerce, a business person, you know. So you see how comprehensive and beautiful this thing is.
Yeah.
Because it makes allowance. This education is not static. It doesn't reside in the little confines of the Ministry of Education and teachers and schools and so on. Because it impacts the entire society. It impacts the whole world. Our education in Dominica impacts the world. Para-Rivere, the late Para-Rivere said the world is our oyster. In other words, we're part of a big global thing. Dominicans operate at various levels, scientists, doctors, all over the world. So when you
educate,
educate
that this morning,
right? So the objective is to educate a Dominican. Pas on peut essayer but or to work in a shop. When you educate a Dominican, you educate that person to serve the world.
Yeah, not just Dominicans.
No, not just Dominicans. So go ahead. One member.
Yeah, D, one member representing the teaching profession.
So you must have a teacher.
Yeah, and E, such other member as the cabinet in its discretions thinks fit.
So you see, for the first time now, the cabinet. And who is the head of the cabinet?
The Prime Minister.
And what is his role here? To recommend.
To recommend members of the committee.
A person,
a person.
It doesn't give him responsibility for recommending everybody.
In its discretion.
One. So cabinet will say, there's a person here we feel that might bring value to this meeting. And that is where the Prime Minister comes in. He doesn't come into the other little things, you know. You notice that? Because he's a busy man. You have to go to see how you got money to pay public officers, how to pay pensioners, how to pay.
So the education minister is correct. The one who appoints the review committee.
Right. She brings
and
right.
In this case,
the cabinet.
When we come to E, the Prime Minister now.
Yeah, the cabinet.
Well, the cabinet comes to a decision to select one person.
One person. So because it's not about politics. It's not about. It is a politics. Yeah, by the way, I want to pause. Yeah. It is a political thing.
Political matter. Yeah,
but it's not about partisan politics. Yeah. So cabinet, you know, have a lot of smart people, brilliant people, and they know people that can probably contribute to the value of such a committee. And cabinet can and ought to work on the law.
Yeah.
So let's put this guy down, man. He might do something big. Let's put Aaron Delia. I know that would never happen, but then they might just recommend me for that. No, I want you to go to section 147. Yeah. That's a very important section with respect to curriculum change. We have time, right?
Yeah, we go.
Good.
Okay, so section 147, subsection 1, the Education Review Committee.
So that's the one that's just appointed in 146?
Yes.
Good.
So we have our Education Committee. Now we're moving on. The Education Review Committee shall review and report on A, the physical conditions and the maintenance of public and assisted private schools.
So you see the word assisted private schools means convent.
Yeah.
They got all part. The government is supposed to assist these schools in a fair and dispassionate manner. They're supposed to, because
is that happening?
My brother, that is the question that you want to ask. I know some private schools are struggling. The teachers do not benefit from when you see they're giving a salary increase to teachers or conditions to teachers in public schools. I understand, Mr. Later, I was listening to his program, and you're saying that they're not taking into consideration teachers at private assisted schools. Private assisted schools have to be respected. There should be a subvention.
These are still schools.
They are schools because
they
if they're
impact
covered,
the community. I mean,
and the fact that they're covered by the law gives us some sort of obligation to the government to support them in a substantial way. You follow the point I'm making?
Yeah.
So I want you to take your time and read that again.
The Education Review, 147 subsection 1. The Education Review Committee shall review and report on A, the physical conditions and the maintenance of public and assisted private.
What do you understand by the physical conditions of schools?
Well, you touched on it a little earlier on, in terms of maintenance,
classroom
plumbing, new desks, chalk.
Right. Whether they're comfortable in the classroom.
Yeah.
You can't have children suffocating when the sun come in in their eyes and stuff like that, and the teachers are uncomfortable. They haven't got proper places to put their books, to put their bags. They haven't got proper chalkboards and whatever.
The door break in half.
Proper places for the children to sit. Recreation facilities, the yard, the grounds of the school. Are these safe? You have to put children in a safe environment.
Is the yard power washed?
Well, if you have grass, you make sure that it's safe. Well, power wash is important for neatness and stuff, but with safety of the children, because the system has an obligation, a duty of care to children. The school has that. But the government has to ensure that the government provides the resources to ensure that students are safe and in a safe environment in school. The windows are not broken. They haven't got rickety chairs like that when I'm sitting on here. The chairs don't rickety too much. That's a good chair. And but those things, that review committee, not just for Grand Bay Primary School, but for Convent, for St. Martin's School. But you cannot want to impose all these things on them, and you're not giving them, you feel you're giving them the sense that they're outside children. You follow what I mean?
I get you.
They probably won't get the exact same treatment as the inside children.
You expect something reasonable.
And they're obligated to ensure that the private assisted schools are served by the resources of the government. They shouldn't be seen as, what you call those children, stepchildren, not
bastards.
Outside children, bastards. No, well, we use that word in English nowadays. Only for some people we use that. But we don't use it anymore. But there's no value. You have to value them because the law tells you have to, when you're inspecting schools, not just government, but assisted schools.
Yeah.
So you have to treat them good. You follow me?
Yeah.
In English. Right. So let's go at A, the physical, they have to examine or review the physical plant conditions, maintenance, school grounds and stuff like that. Both government and assisted private schools. B,
the suitability of the curriculum in public and assisted private
schools. So you see again here, they are advising the minister on matters of curriculum. So it's not about somebody coming up and say, I want to see music, I want to see more sports. They say that person who likes sports, but I want to see more sports, more music, I want to see civics, I want to see helicopters flying and stuff like that. It's not about that, It's just an orderly, as we said, and coordinated approach. Yeah. That's what the law requires. So they have to make sure that the curriculum are we really meeting the needs of our children today? As I said earlier, there will be constraints, but no government is in a position to provide all the resources for everything. But when there's planning, when you plan and when you think about it, when you do it strategically, one person doesn't go up on stage and dance belly and nasty dance and what do you call it, dirty dancing and nasty music to nasty music and pretend that I am king and so on. You have a better system. You follow what I mean? You empower the persons, the minister, the chief education officer, the assistant chief, the other officials, the various units in education. When you empower them, the government is empowered. So I'm making that point here because it talks about the suitability of the curriculum and so on. Go ahead.
C, the Education Review Committee shall review and report on the performance of students at 1, the assessments held in accordance with section 139, 1 and 2.
Mm-hmm.
2, the annual examination set and mapped by individual schools.
So when you say the assessments here, you have internal assessment of the school. Each school supposed to assess the children according to the grades, the So you have grade 5 assessment within the school, not like the external common entrance exam. So these are internal end of term exams or mid-term exams due to find out whether the children are achieving the objectives of the curriculum
Assessment
within the
targets.
school.
Yeah.
You see, internal things. So they will have to look at that. In our review committee, we tried something like that because we went out and we looked a lot at these things. When I was there, we had different teams going out to schools and performing a lot of these tasks. Go ahead.
And 3 examinations set by the Caribbean Examinations Council.
Right, but how well are the students doing on these exams?
At
CXC, it used to be GC when I was a real person. But it's CX, Yeah, go ahead.
The organization of the ministry and its delivery of education services.
So they're supposed to also review whether the ministry is providing reasonable resources.
And I guess this is why the composition of the review committee is more professional based than members from the government.
You said so.
So you only have one member
from cabinet. The others are minister, and hopefully they're not persons that are there just for partisans. But you see how the committee informs the government about what they need to do, where things are not going right, and maybe advise on how make recommendations as to what should be done. So education is not a Viking thing. The curriculum is not a Viking thing.
Very meticulous.
And the Education Act, as you can see, is so beautifully outlining those things.
It really is.
So, any government, let me make the point, that any government is really interested in advancing and developing education in Dominica. Not going to put a showboat, a play, a game, a dance, one person shouting and screaming, but they will pay attention to what this is saying, because that is where you have the objective analysis, the objective information coming to the government to improve the system in a real and meaningful and substantial way. You understand what I mean? Going on stage and asking for civics, asking for more sports, more music. I want more music in school. I want more sports in school. That doesn't address the matter in an orderly and coordinated. So I like the way you begin in the rubric and then you go into the thing. That is sharp. Go ahead.
The teaching service and the number, quality, and performance of teachers.
So you see, does the school, are there sufficient teachers? Are there teachers that are qualified and trained to teach the various skills that are offered at schools? All these things, you have, if you want to do things right, you have to do them right. You know what I mean? So you asked me, I'm going back to the question you asked me, whether the ministry, the education system has developed in a way that suggests that they were growing. That answers the question. Is that being done? Don't answer that question. Is that being done? Anyway, go ahead.
F. The Education Review Committee shall review and report on F. Any other matter which, in the opinion of the Education Review Committee, would enhance the quality and delivery of education in Dominica.
So you see, that is what the law requires. And when you have that, you don't need to go on stage and dance. You don't need to go on stage and sing calypso and sing nasty music. You don't need to go on stage and shout to the world, I want to say this and I want to do that. These things have to be done in a methodical manner, according to law. And as I said, when you violate the law, you're calling for collapse. The building roof will collapse. The education system will collapse. The agricultural system will collapse. The health system will collapse. The police service will collapse because you violate the law. You follow what I mean? Law is important. It makes all of us equal subjects. No kings. Like I was in America recently protesting, no kings. I was there doing it for America. No kings in Dominica, no kings in America. So that's the point. The law makes us equal subjects. It defines who we are, and it helps us to clearly move forward in an organized, coordinated, and orderly fashion. I want you to read it because I find you a brilliant reader. Subsection 2.
Mm-hmm. The report.
I want you to read that carefully and slowly.
Mm-hmm. Okay. The report of the Education Review Committee shall be submitted to the minister,
The
that
home-
being
eh, wait,
education minister,
right.
who shall cause it to be laid before
Where?
the House of
To
Assembly.
be laid where?
Before the House of
So
Assembly.
that both sides of parliament, the government, those in charge, and those that are not in charge, will have an opportunity to see what is happening in our education system. So then, from that can emerge the need to have civics in schools. From that can emerge the need to cut off music or to cut off sports or to include more music or to include more sports, to include more vocational subjects or to put more emphasis on science and computers. You know what I mean? But that's a system that is orderly and coordinated. It's not about symposiums. Symposiums, they have had too many symposiums and nothing comes out of that because it's not really strategic. It's not informative.
I mean,
It's not substantive.
This is very substantive
That is
and straightforward. I mean,
So you can feel my excitement. My job as assistant chief was to promulgate the act. I tell you, I went to every single school. I met PTAs, and I had, I was excited. The Education Act is an exciting instrument because
it's well written. Man.
Absolutely well. Oh man, they're giving us credit. And that notice, it was gazetted in 1990.
1997.
That says a lot. I'm not going to
says a lot.
It says
a lot. Yeah.
And that's about 4.5 years, whatever, within 4.5 years or something.
Wow.
But so I want you to repeat subsection 2 and then we go to subsection 3.
147 subsection 2. The report of the Education Review Committee shall be submitted to the Education Minister, who shall cause it to be laid before the House of Assembly.
So you see the word shall appears not once, but twice in this subsection. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It shall be, and it shall be submitted to the House. Have you seen that happen?
No.
Have you heard of anything like that?
No.
When they talk about the House, when they talk about CBI, you know, to say you're selling passports and foolishness like that, right? Okay, my brother. So I'm reading subsection 3 now.
Subsection 3. After the report of the Education Review Committee has been laid before the House of Assembly, it shall be then printed and sold to the public.
So the government can make money. Not maybe they won't make $1 million, but they can certainly make, because people would be interested in doing, not just people in Dominica, what we're doing in education here. And you see, when you you subject yourself to scrutiny, you become a better person. You become a better government. You become a better prime minister. You become a better minister, a better official, a better nurse, a better doctor, whatever work you're doing. If you're humble enough to subject yourself to scrutiny and criticism and stuff, whether it's good or bad, it doesn't matter.
You become better.
You become a better person.
Yeah.
So anybody that doesn't want, if you want to figure a bike, you go and you say, I want to have a meeting with teachers. I put in teachers because some people that's how they speak. And I want to meet and have a symposium on education. That's not how it's supposed to be done. The law defines beautifully an organized and orderly and coordinated fashion.
Yeah.
So I tell you, I'm excited about the Education Act, and we're talking about curriculum here, and you see how exciting this is.
It is. Yeah, it is.
You see
very relevant to what we're dealing with now.
Exactly. Now there are other things in the Act. I hope I can get up to like teachers' rights and students' rights. People have, but there are lots of things, other things in the Education Act that empowers people, parents. I want them to know what their rights are.
Yeah.
Teachers, and and things like that. The Education Act empowers people. It ensures the purpose of the act, as we said earlier on. Remember, we read the purpose of the act? To provide for the orderly and coordinated development of a relevant, varied, and comprehensive educational system in Dominica. So people need to, and characterized by excellence. People need to sit down. Don't go and have no long symposium and have one man come in and give his views as to what he wants. Let's do the thing according to law. Why? Because when you violate the law, there's a guy that has a vlog on YouTube. How do you call these things on YouTube when you talk? A vlog or a blog?
That's a podcast. It could be considered a podcast.
And he says, because justice matters. And my thing is because when we violate the law, the system, the structures collapse. So the education system will collapse if we violate and disrespect the law and we have one manism. and everybody said, let's clap for him. He said that to the teachers. He said that to you. That's not how it's supposed to be done. So as we see here, it's only one area where you see cabinet, and you quite correctly identified cabinet being headed by the
minister.
The cabinet.
By the cabinet, yeah.
By the prime minister, being headed by the prime minister.
Yeah.
And in every other case, is the minister that has to be empowered to do the thing. But it tells you, if the minister is not doing that, it's either the minister is ignorant of the law, or is not being allowed to do the things that he or she, or sometimes they say it, but I'm not going to say that here, is empowered and authorized to do.
Okay, so definitely it answers the question as to if protocol is being followed, and it appears not. What we will say is that we advise and hope that it is during the process of this curriculum reform.
I don't know if anybody has any questions or whatever. But maybe they fall asleep. We send them to sleep.
No, I think it's a lot to digest, and I think they're taking it in because it really is a lot. Calls are coming in. It is open. Let's take a call. Caller, you're live.
Hello, good afternoon, Richie. Good afternoon, Arundel.
Hi, ladies. What's up,
yeah, I just want to tell Arundel thank you for all the information he gave, because we know when we worked in the Ministry of Education, things were organized. Everybody had their role to play. Mm-hmm. Everybody knew what they had to do. Nobody was breathing down their neck. You understand what I'm saying?
Yep.
And we read a lot. We read the rules, we read the regulations. So thank you, Arundel. The Ministry of Education, how it was before, in our time, and Arundel know that very well, is not like that anymore. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am. I appreciate your comments.
You guys did a wonderful
that lady
job.
Was a
wonderful job. I mean, I'm reading this and I mean, it's just so informative and comprehensive.
Beautiful.
It's clear. I mean,
it's super through the body, right?
Yeah, this is forward thinking. This is like decades ahead of its time.
Yeah.
And this was done in 1997.
So we don't need, when you follow that, my brother, you have it. You know what I mean?
Let's take another call. Caller, you're live.
Peace and blessings.
Peace and blessings.
Peace and blessings.
How are you? Oh my goodness. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon to you all. I've been listening to the whole, segment, and it is so uplifting to really see Mr. Arundel.
Arundel, yes. Thank you very much, Empress.
I've been in the school system, but in the United States.
Mm-hmm.
And it's amazing, like when you come into the first day of school and when we have our day where, the principal gives you everything you have to do throughout the day, throughout the school year, and everyone is so motivated.
Yeah.
They're ready to go forth with the new school year. But it is very refreshing when you dissect the law the way it is supposed to be. And, there's a chain of command per se, or there's a hierarchy in how things are supposed to be done, And because I listened to the other conversations before about what should be involved in the school, what should be there, but when you dissect it the way you did, it really breaks it down that everyone has a role to play.
Yeah.
When that role is played,
then you get results.
And trickles down, you will see results.
Yeah.
But if the top is not structured, then there could only be chaos in the bottom.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then who suffers but the children.
Correct.
So it is very refreshing to hear that, and for I think people to really sit back and listen to the way you break it down, so you can't sit on the outside just probably making assumptions, presumptions of what should be, what shouldn't be, but there is a way and an order in how things are supposed, quote unquote, supposed to be done.
Thank you. You're
so
super.
I thank you for that, because even being here, and I'm not in the school system here, but even being here, it kind of motivates me, and I have friends here who are in the education system here, and sometimes they're not so motivated about the way things are being done.
I know. Yeah.
Here, it doesn't give them the morale that they need to go to work every day and to do what they're doing, and it really has to get set from the top.
Yeah.
Down. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Appreciate
much
your comment.
for calling. Some more calls here. Caller, you're live.
Yes. Good afternoon, gentlemen.
Good afternoon, brother.
Gentlemen, good afternoon.
I want to congratulate both of you for a very, very good program. Informative. And Mr. Arundel Thomas, the man from Lakuset.
Yeah, you better say that, my brother. Lakuset.
Hats off to you, sir. Hats off to you. I am there listening to the program and see, man, how you break that down. Oh, yes, oh, yes, oh, yes. All they have to do is to follow the Education Act, and everything in education will be okay for us. Gentlemen, all the best. Congratulations once again.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, that's it for us today. I'm sorry we can't take more calls, but we appreciate you listening in, and to the officials who are listening to the program, please take note. We are now aware of the protocol for curriculum reform. As a result, we expect the protocols to be followed. We need to see more empowerment of the Education Minister, the Honorable Octavia Alfred, as well as the various technocrats within the Ministry of Education. While we appreciate the Honorable Prime Minister coming up with the idea, protocol is protocol. Ladies and gentlemen, I thank you for being our esteemed audience this afternoon. Some final remarks on the show from Mr. Arundel Thomas. Arundel?
Yeah, so I want to thank you. I want to thank you, listeners. I know you all listen to that. Well, the law excites me because it speaks to the advancement and development of education of all people, not just the students. Society benefits. As I said, the world benefits when Dominica has a good education system, because we send people overseas that can make things happen for us, not just here, but all over. We must follow the law. The Constitution requires that we follow the law. Whether you're the Prime Minister, the chief, whatever, establishment officer, a policeman, a doctor, there are laws and rules, because laws make us better, more empowered, and stuff like that. It doesn't diminish us. The Prime Minister wouldn't be diminished if he follows the law.
He will be
empowered because he get better, good quality advice, coordinated and strategic advice. Thank you, listeners. Yeah. And all of the aspects of the law, I'm eager to come and share with when the brother here has is willing to let me do that, because I want to talk to teachers
to do so.
Because I want to tell teachers, I want to encourage teachers to see where their rights are, the parents and stuff like that.
Once the opportunity arises, we will be talking again.
Thank you. So when we obey the law, the building wouldn't collapse. Well, it reduce the risk of collapse, of structural collapse, system collapse. Thank you very much, Richie, for having me. Thank you, audience, and thank you, everybody. God bless you.
Brother Arundel, that was Arundel Thomas, teacher, former assistant, Chief Education Officer in Dominica, albeit a brilliant mind. Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. It is Wednesday, June 16th, 2025. Stay tuned to the big station Q95 FM.
Coolest deal yet. It's summer sale at Freeze Tech and Electric. Ready to chill out this summer? We've got you covered. For a limited time only, enjoy a refreshing 20 to 25% off on all air conditioning units, all sizes and types, high wall, cassette, and ductable, while supplies last. Don't sweat through another scorching day. Upgrade your comfort and save big. Visit us today at Freeze Tech and Electric in Castle Comfort or call 1767 440 6717 and feel